So Everton are in the process of hiring a new manager, so let's take a look at the first 10 clubs in the Premier League in alphabetical order, and the managers who were brought in that the fans were underwhelmed by. Arsenal, Bruce Ree. Okay, so I'm not spoiled for choice. Arsenal have only had 3 managers in the Premier League, and one of them looks like he's clinging on to his job until he starts to decompose. But let's go for Bruce Ree. He succeeded George Graham in 1995, and yeah, his stock was high. He'd performed reasonably well at Bolton, even reaching the League Cup final, but he was still a manager whose sole season of top flight experience consisted of getting relegated with Middlesbrough. Bournemouth, Tony Pulis. Modern day football fans will know Bournemouth to play smooth, silky stuff without getting too many positive results to show for it. Tony Pulis is the antithesis of that. Maybe that's why he only spent 2 years there. Harry Redknapp had just left the Cherries in the lurch in 1992 when he decided to leave for West Ham, so instead of looking elsewhere, Bournemouth plumped for the assistant boss Pulis, launching his career and inflicting us on some of the most dreary football known to mankind. Brighton, Gus Poyet. Gus Poyet might have been a wonderful footballer, but before being given the Brighton job in 2009, the only thing he'd done in the coaching game was put out the cones in training for Dennis Wise and Juan de Ramos. To be fair, despite being an underwhelming appointment, he did well at Brighton, taking them from League 1 to the Championship playoffs. Still didn't stop him getting sacked live on television though. Burnley, Brian Laws. How not to survive in the Premier League? It was bad enough Owen Coyle had run off to Bolton at the first opportunity, taking a giant sideways step from Burnley midway through the 09-10 season. It was understandable the fans would be upset, but when they saw who his replacement was, you wouldn't have blamed them for seeking medical attention. Former Scunthorpe boss Laws, a man with as much top flight experience as the dog next door, was drafted in and proceeded to torch Coyle's good work, losing 15 of their 18 games, plummeting like a stone from mid-table back into the Championship. Chelsea, Avram Grant. Some Chelsea fans are probably screaming the name of Rafa Benitez right now. They were certainly shouting at him to get out of the club for most of his 6-month spell, but we'll go for Avram Grant. Sacking Jose Mourinho, a man who'd won you your first 2 league titles in over 50 years, was bad enough. Replacing him with Toad from Toad Hall was inexcusable. Grant had never coached outside of Israel in his entire life, was the technical director at Stamford Bridge, and let's be honest, had about as much personality as a wet fish. Crystal Palace, Neil Warnock. Which time? Neil Warnock is on to his 17th job in management, so it's fair to say he's had his fair share of critics along the way. When he returned to Crystal Palace for a second spell in 2014, nobody was particularly thrilled, except maybe his wife. The club had just parted company with the original Big Sam and Tony Pulis, and Warnock hadn't done much besides play some golf and mow the lawn for the past year. He didn't last long. Everton, David Moyes. To be honest, Everton don't make too many underwhelming appointments. We'll go with David Moyes though. I think you can guess where else he's going to appear on this list. Appointed in 2002, he'd done a good job at Preston North End, but again had zero top flight experience. Worked out pretty well though. Huddersfield, David Wagner. It's always risky appointing men with no managerial experience. David Wagner might have looked like a Jurgen Klopp clone, but Huddersfield fans didn't have a clue who he was when he was appointed in November 2015. They certainly do now. Leicester City, Nigel Pearson. The love affair between Leicester City and Nigel Pearson is a long and bumpy one. Of course it is. They sacked him twice in the last 10 years despite 2 promotions. But when he was first appointed back in June 2008 and the club were facing the prospect of League 1, the fans were not enthused, especially considering Pearson had just left Southampton after 3 months after barely keeping them in the Championship at the Fox's expense. It didn't make much sense. But Pearson, alongside Craig Shakespeare, that's a familiar name, quickly took charge and the rest is history. Liverpool, Roy Hodgson. It's fair to say this one was mixed. On one hand, there were a few Liverpool fans swept up in the Roy Hodgson hype. This was a man with a wealth of experience who just grabbed Fulham by their ankles and hoisted them into the Europa League final, with Paul Konchesky at left back, let's not forget. On the other hand, did Rafa Benitez really die for this? To be sacked for the former manager of Grasshoppers, Copenhagen and Viking? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.